Okay, if you know me in real life, you know that some of my favorite paintings ever are Renaissance paintings. I can't explain why, I just love that era. So when I was coming up with ideas for the Headless Horseman, I didn't want to do the quintessential riding in on a horse because that's just not my style. But I knew I had to include the horse because horse, man, yeah, you get it. So immediately this painting popped into my head called Young Woman with Unicorn by Raphael, and I knew I had to take inspiration from it because it was honestly just kind of funny to me, and I love art history. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll include the painting at the end of this video. Let's get into the folklore. The Headless Horseman is a mythical figure that has appeared in folklore around the world since the Middle Ages. You might know him mostly from the classic short story The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. The story goes that he was a soldier killed in battle by a cannonball, ow, and he came back as a malevolent ghost furiously seeking his lost head. Oftentimes he's seen sporting a nice jack-o'-lantern as a replacement because he's just so spoopy. Again, I'm going to include the painting I took inspiration from at the end. I hope you can see where I was going with this. Hi. If you guys have been following me for a bit, you know that every October I participate in the Inktober Challenge. Last year's theme was folklore. It's probably the reason why I have most of my following, and overall it was just an awesome, fun experience, so of course I wanted to do it this year too. And with it being the first day of fall, I thought it was the perfect time to share my prompt list for 2021. Themes I've done so far have been nightmares and folklore. Here they are in their cute little zines. And this year I'll basically be continuing that theme, but the title of the prompt list will be Mythos. Think of it like folklore's little baby sister. She's just happy to be here along on the ride. Same concept, different stories. I'll have the prompt list again at the end of this video, and it'll also be on my Instagram for easier viewing. So each day of October, I'll be drawing one of these prompts, and I would love for you guys to join in. You don't have to do every single one. You can just pick your favorites, pick one, do them all. Just have fun. Don't stress. And with that, it is officially spooky season. Here's my list. Happy first day of Inktober, besties! It feels so good to be back, and we're starting this year's series off with the story of the Lady in Black. Lady in Black is a tale that originated in Boston, Massachusetts, specifically in Fort Warren, which was used as a training camp and a prison during the Civil War. The ghost is believed to be the spirit of Melanie Lanier, whose husband was a soldier imprisoned at Fort Warren, and Melanie came up with a plan to free him. Disguised as a man, she hoisted her body over the prison walls using a rope, reuniting with her husband. Using a pickaxe, she began tunneling out of the prison underneath the thick stone walls, followed by her husband and several other prisoners. Because the digging was so loud, the guards eventually heard them, and a fight broke out between the guards and the prisoners. During this, a guard tried grabbing a pistol Melanie was carrying on her, accidentally striking her husband during the scuffle. Melanie was arrested for trying to aid her husband in escaping and was sentenced to death by hanging. Still disguised as a man, she requested to change into women's clothing, and the guards found a simple black gown to clothe her in her last moments. Her restless spirit is said to roam Fort Warren, mourning the loss of her husband and holding the guilt and frustration of her failed attempt to free him.
I haven't used my glitter paint in a while, and really it feels like coming home is what it feels like. I also did this giant ghost, and then I just remembered I had this glow-in-the-dark glitter. I was like, oh, what do I do? Dumped it on there. Great. Awesome. I added little flowers around it because I wanted this to be a ghost version of the floral jack-o'-lantern where there's just like flowers surrounding everywhere. Painting the ghost on canvas with acrylic paint specifically is just, it's become a tradition. Okay, but I haven't felt inspired because I haven't been using acrylic paint. But I'm like, okay, and this was fun. It was too textured to use my paint pen. Whoops. It is like sandpaper. So I found a tiny brush and all is well. And then I did the centers with paint because that felt right. And I was like, you know what, I like this brush. I like you. I'm kind of liking you better than this paint pen. Because paint pens are kind of boring sometimes. They're just like, whatever. And I tried to make those little white ones. I mixed the glitter in the paint. Wouldn't recommend that. It's okay. It's alright. Who cares? And I love the colors, I really do. When I added that lime green, I was like, yes! Yes! Now wait for this. Are you ready? Okay. Go on. Ooh! He's magical. He's glittery. He's glow in the dark. Okay, love you, bye. Para todos aquellos que están buscando listas alternativas para hacer el reto del Inktober, aquí les voy a enseñar una forma súper fácil para encontrar un montón de listas diferentes y seguro encuentran una que les guste. Te vas a ir a la parte de explorar en Instagram y vas a buscar Inktober 2023. Automáticamente te van a salir un montón de listas alternativas y sí, al final la esencia del Inktober ahí está, pero son listas de diferentes artistas con sus temáticas específicas. Por ejemplo, esta de Compilations, que de hecho en lugar de 31 dibujos son 15 para que no te sientas tan presionado y nada más hagas un dibujo cada 2 días. Ahí pueden ir explorando todas las listas que hay, seguramente encuentran una que les guste, porque hay unas que son de temas muy específicos, incluso hay algunas que están dedicadas como a cierto tipo de artistas. Por ejemplo, esta de Fashion Inktober, que está como más dirigida hacia los que hacen ilustración de moda. Recuerda que lo importante es crear, no importa si es con un reto, sin un reto, con una lista u otra, nunca dejes de hacerlo. Miren, por ejemplo, esta para arquitectos, el Inktober 2023, también está muy bueno para aquellos que se dedican a ese rubro. Espero que te haya servido el video y que encuentres tu lista ideal.
Set the phases to run. What's got you distraught? It's negative attention at best. But call it nothing. Maybe it's something a little bit. Maybe it's something. It's all about ascension, I guess. Don't put me to rest. On and hand me your clothes. Take a picture or two. I can see you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room. Fears, tell me fears, don't get me started. I get a little gray hair.
Desafio do Inktober valendo prêmio! Para quem não sabe o que é o Inktober, é um desafio de desenho do mês de outubro, onde você tem que fazer um desenho por dia. Tem a lista oficial de desenhos, mas muitos artistas criam a sua própria, e eu criei a minha. E a lista do meu desafio é desenhar criaturas como zumbis, vampiros, bruxas. E para incentivar vocês a participar desse desafio, eu decidi colocar um prêmio nele. Terão 2 vencedores e os prêmios são 60 e 20 reais em itens da minha lojinha. Tudo que você precisa fazer para participar é entrar no meu servidor de Discord, o link tá na minha bio. Lá você vai encontrar todas as regras e como participar. Gostou? Já marca aqui seu amigo artista que vai participar desse desafio com você. E um outubro cheio de desenho a todos! Se gosta desse tipo de conteúdo, não esqueça de seguir, comenta alguma coisa e tchau!
It's basically Halloween first, and it's day 1 of my Frighttober art challenge. I'm doing 31 days of drawing popular Halloween characters, things that you'd probably dress up as for Halloween, like witches, zombies, vampires, and clowns. So first up is Scarecrow, who's hosting a ghoulish party this year to finally get him on the map and have the others take him seriously. But first, he needs a hosting partner, somebody who's been in the hosting industry for a while. Also, I'm using Ahuhu's newest colored fineliners for today. These are the Ahuhu Hana Highway fineliner drawing pens, and it's super exciting because I've been wanting to use colored fineliners in my art for a while. These are waterproof and alcohol resistant according to Ahuhu, but I did find that they take a bit longer to dry than my usual Ahuhu fineliners. This 18 pack is $14.99 and comes with 11 colored liners and 7 black fineliners. Of course, big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. Don't forget to use my coupon code Layla10 on the Ahuhu website so you can get a discount. And who should be the Scarecrow's companion in hosting the biggest party of the year? The funny thing about this Halloween town is that humans do happen upon it, and depending on how long they stay, they begin to change too. When Princess arrived, she was quite fair-haired and completely human then, but it's been a few hundred years since she stumbled upon this world. Her skin has gone purplish, her pupils turned into skulls, and her clothing deepened into shades of red and black. In her human life, she was fated to become the 4th wife of King Henry VIII, but that title went on to another woman, as on the eve of her wedding day, she snuck out of the palace and was never seen again. How she happened across this world? Well, it's hard to say as she doesn't quite remember. In fact, it's been so long she doesn't even remember her name much, and simply goes by Princess. She is pretty excited though about Scarecrow's ball coming up, mostly because a certain Pumpkin King has kinda caught her eye, but he's pretty oblivious to it. Big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. All art supplies are Ahuhu, so make sure to use my discount code Layla10 on the ahuhu.com website from now until the end of October. And what other Halloween monsters should I add to my Frighttober prompt list? You'd never guess, but Regina the Gorgon is a pretty rad guitarist. She's also pretty passionate about her band the Booligans, and it drives a pretty big wedge between her and her parents. Her parents don't really get her musical passion, and they truly dislike the monsters it brings her in contact with, especially the kind that used to be human, like Princess and Caius the vampire. Regina comes from a pretty wealthy monster family, and her parents, well, they believe that the town shouldn't be so welcoming of strangers, particularly human strangers, and according to them, humans are just not monsters, no matter how much this town turns them into one. Regina thinks her parents are ridiculous, and she can't wait to move out of the house and pursue her musical dreams more full-time. But first, she's gotta finish her studies at her local university. Big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. All art supplies are Ahuhu, so make sure to use my discount code Layla10 on the Ahuhu website from now until the end of October. And what other Halloween monsters should I add to my Frighttober prompt list? It's no secret that dragons prefer princesses. They just do. It's almost like it's hardwired into their brains, much like gold and other treasures. So of course Draco the Dragon's interest was piqued when Princess made her arrival to their town. He intimidated Princess purely by how large his humanoid form is, as he stands at roughly 7 feet. Of course, his dragon form is certainly no less frightening. His draw towards Princess at first was just pure instinct. But Princess hated how he saw her. He had no emotions towards her, and she knew he simply wanted to just collect her like a thing. And so she wanted nothing to do with him. Well, it's been a few hundred years since their first encounter, and he's always admired Princess from afar. Since then, he's been working on himself, his emotions, and how he sees her, and he plans to make his first actual move at Scarecrow's party. But it might be too late since Princess seems quite interested in the jack-o'-lantern. Big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. All art supplies are Ahuhu, so make sure to use my discount code Layla10 on the Ahuhu website from now until the end of October. When Grimm was a human in the late 1800s, he had plans to become a private investigator. Grimm, whose human name is actually Silas, was a bit of a psychic when he was alive. He could see flashes of the future, but they weren't always the clearest. This ability led to Silas having visions of a certain horrible man, referred to as Jack the Ripper, by the public. Silas planned to solve the case, but unfortunately he became too involved and wound up being wrongly accused for Jack's crimes. Before his sentencing though, Silas was saved by a cloaked figure who wore a black blindfold over his eyes. He called himself the Ferryman and he took Silas to his world. It wasn't long before Silas was asked to become a Reaper. The Ferryman disagreed with this choice as Reapers signed contracts to work for several hundred years. But Silas struck a deal with the god of the underworld, and the first life he was allowed to reap was the real Jack, putting an end to the criminal's reign of terror in London. Big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. All supplies are Ahuhu, so make sure to use the Layla10 discount code on the Ahuhu website. And who's next? Witches have existed in the spooky realm since the beginning of its time, but some began to explore the human realm and they brought their witchcraft with them. Sage was born in the spooky realm and is an incredibly strong witch. They were born blind, but their powers help aid them by increasing the strength of their hearing, creating a sort of echolocation type power. When they were young, they had no interest in the human realm and simply focused on their own coven and growing their own powers. But as time passed, it became harder to ignore the human realm, especially when news of witch trials began to occur. Sage was ordered to ignore it all, but eventually they couldn't. They defied their coven and have spent the greater part of the last 500 years seeking out fellow witches all over the human world and offering them refuge in their own world. It's caused quite the disruption in their Halloween town, but Sage has never regretted doing what they felt was right. Big thanks to Ahuhu for sponsoring my Frighttober. All art supplies are Ahuhu, so make sure to use my discount code Layla10 on the Ahuhu website from now until the end of October. And who's next?
Hoy vamos a dibujar la palabra cráneo, seguimos con el reto y esta vez ocuparemos la lista del Pelontober. Como les he dicho, pueden dibujar la palabra literal o algo relacionado. Para esta palabra yo decidí hacer una reina de cráneos. ¿Se imaginan ser una reina y que sea de cráneos? Tener una corona ahí con cráneos, huesos. La verdad es que sería muy icónico. Sí, yo quisiese pero no pudiese, chica. Unos cuantos detalles más y listo. Este es el resultado. Cuéntame qué te pareció y si te gustó podrías interactuar para quedarte en este lado.
And it goes like this. We'll get in your car and you'll need to kiss. And it goes like this. We'll get in your car and you'll need to kiss me until for hours. And it goes like this. We'll get in your car and you'll need to kiss me until for hours and lay on the bed.
This is how I would make a cute little ghost holding a pumpkin. First, I would lightly outline everything. Then I would mix up a white watercolor and I will wash the whole thing in that. It will help him stand out a little bit on the white page. Now it's time to add shadows. I don't like to use blacks or grays for this. I usually just dull down lavenders, greens, or peach colors. And I'm adding that to wherever there would be a natural shadow in the ghost. I might go over it a couple times too to make sure it's dark enough. Then I'll mix up an orange color and watercolor the pumpkin portion. And before it's dry, I'll drop in some darker orange around the edge just to make it stand out a little bit more. For the detail on the pumpkin, you can do two things. You can turn your watercolor brush over to the back and outline the lines, or you can paint over them with a darker color. Next, I'm adding in the eyes. And you can stop there or you can add some flowers. I decided I wanted some flowers around the pumpkin too. So I'm starting with some yellow petals. I'll wait for that to dry completely. I added some stems.
The phases do run. What's got you distraught? It's negative attention at best. Let's call it nothing. Maybe it's something a little bit. Maybe it's something to do. It's all about ascension, I guess. Don't put me to rest. Go on and hand me your clothes. Take a picture or two. I can see you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room. Fears, tell me fears, don't get me started. I get a little gray hair for every.
What happens when you don't have access to a thrift store and you want to do the little ghost thrift store painting trend that's going on? Well, you get a public domain artwork like this one. I was able to get a high resolution copy of this artwork. I printed it off on my printer and sprayed it with a little varnish to help with the paint. This image comes from the National Gallery of Art in Washington, their website. You can download it for free and use it. It's by William Tross Richards. It's called October, and it made the perfect backdrop for my little ghosty friend. Also, it was kind of an educational tool. I had no idea this artist existed, and he was an absolutely amazing landscape and seascape artist from the United States. It was wonderful. A great educational tool and a little fun. You should give it a go.
If you go down in the woods today, you're sure of a big surprise. If you go down in the woods today, you better go in disguise. For every bear that ever there was will gather there for certain, because today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic.
I can't be the only one who hears you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room. Fears, tell me fears, don't get me started. I can tell not to set the phases to run. What's got you distraught? It's negative attention at best. Let's call it nothing. Maybe it's something a little bit. Maybe it's something to do. It's all about ascension, I guess. Don't put me to rest. Go on and hand me your clothes. Take a picture or two. I can see you. Tears falling down at the party. Saddest little baby in the room. Fears, tell me fears, don't get me started. I get a little gray hair for every